Namaskaram. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to the seventh edition of the Vedic Wisdom Festival organized by Arshi Vidya Foundation. Dr. Hema Hari and Dr. D.K. Hari were participants of the Vedic Wisdom Festival last year, and by popular demand, as they say, we have had them back for this year as well, telling them that it's Gita Jayanti and can you therefore stitch your talk around Bhagavad Gita and aspects of Bhagavad Gita. And without batting an eyelid, both of them said, of course we can. That shows their expertise in what they do and what they have been doing over more than 25 years ago. Dr. D.K. Hari and Dr. Hema Hari are founders of Bharat Gyan, a forerunner in Indian civilization knowledge studies. It is interesting, and this conversation I just had with Dr. Hema Hari, that Krishna's life and Mahabharata are referred to as itihasa. It is referred to as history. And therefore, by tracing Krishna's footsteps, you're actually tracing the historicity and geography of this country. So therefore, and this line I loved, I'm borrowing this line from Dr. Hema Hari. She said, is Bharat defined by Indus Valley? Because everybody says Indus Valley civilization. Is Bharat defined by Indus Valley or is Bharat defined by Mahabharata? I think it's a very interesting question. And I think we seek some answers from Dr. Hema Hari and Dr. Hari. Thank you so much, both of you all, for giving us your time. Welcome to Vedic Wisdom Festival.
Thank you, Mr. Sri Suresh Balakrishnaji, for introducing us so well. Pranams to Swamini and Swamiji for inviting us once again for this event this year too. Thank you so much. As always, it's an honor and pleasure to be on Vedic Wisdom Festival platform each year, and we'll be glad to always be associated with this wonderful initiative of yours. Thank you. And when Sri Suresh Balakrishna started with the opening comment, that is the Indus Valley civilization, the defining factor of the Indian civilization. He mentioned that point, and he said, or is it Mahabharata? Good question. Because many people have this in their mind. And obviously we would speak about today for next 1 hour on tracing the footsteps of Krishna. And Krishna is intrinsic part of Mahabharata. Let's make one point abundantly clear at the beginning itself as an opening statement. That is, what you just now called as the Indus Valley civilization is an old name of a century now, from the times of Marshall and others. The present name that we have all been using for the last few decades, and more correctly, it's called the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, because over 2,700 sites of the Indus Valley civilization lie along the erstwhile Saraswati River Nadi flow. So it's more aptly called the Sindhu Saraswati civilization now, and that's the name that will be continuing. It's part of the Bharata civilization. Having said this point, the other point we'd like to say is, what you call the Indus Valley civilization / Sindhu Saraswati civilization being the start point of the Indian civilization, and what we say Mahabharata being an itihasa, as Dr. Hema explained some time back, itihasa, meaning the term itihasa itself means what? It thus happened. Iti ha asa. It thus happened. So, what we are seeing now is here, this is contemporaneous of that period. So, the Indus Valley civilization, Sindhu Saraswati civilization, and the events of Mahabharata are geographically same, or timeline-wise same. So they're not two different products. So the benchmark of the Indian civilization and the benchmark of the Bharata civilization are one and the same in geography, in timeline, and all other aspects. That is the beauty of. So they are not two, they are one. So I'm glad, Mr. Suresh, you made that point so that we could bring this out right in the front for all of us to take it forward from. They are one and the same in timeline and geography. So obviously they are sitting on each other and they intertwined. Now, Dr. Hema, take over. She'll be sharing some slides with you and should be explaining, please.
Just one moment. So the topic actually for this session is tracing Sri Krishna's footsteps and the Mahabharata landscape, because we all know that they go together. But at the same time, the question that Suresh ji and I were just talking about is just a second. Is India itself, we know it as India, that is Bharat. And is this India that is Bharat, is it defined by the Indus Valley or is it defined by the Mahabharata? So which of these two? Are you able to see the slide? Mr. Suresh, can you confirm?
Yes, we are able to see the slides.
Okay. So which of these two should we attribute to India, and are they different? And so like Hariji said in the beginning itself, we would like to say that these two go together. They are contemporaneous. They are not different sites, not time periods. And therefore, we should not be looking at them separately. And they are intrinsic part of both India, that is Bharat. So the way India and Bharat cannot be separated now, they are also the same. And for that, actually tracing Sri Krishna's footsteps are very helpful. And so in this brief 1 hour, what we will try to do is explore why do we call Mahabharata and Itihasa? And with this, how can we estimate the time frame? So the moment you say Itihasa, it is obviously talking, it has a historical component. It is not history alone. It has a historical component. It also has a geographical component. It also has the aspect of events happening, because the way the word itihasa itself means it thus happened. So it thus happened means something has happened. So what happened, when, where, with whom all? So all of that come into this itihasa. And with that, we are then going to be able to estimate the timeline of when these events have happened, where did they happen, and therefore look at that vis-a-vis the Sindhu Saraswati Indus Valley civilization. And we will see that there is a lot of truth in all of this, because you will see a convergence of facts happening itself in all of this. So taking the point about Itihasa, why do we call Mahabharata and Itihasa? So fundamentally, if you go to this, so actually, if you look at it, the events of the Bible themselves, they were all thought to be mythical, until the time when they discovered the city of Ur. And they found that this is the city that has been mentioned in the Bible. It's the same name, has the same layout, descriptions, and so on. And that is when they started mapping the events of Bible with places in and around Ur. And then they started saying, okay, this is this place, this is so-and-so place. All the biblical places, the start for all that came from this place, Ur. So like that, Dwaraka has served that purpose for us. For us, Dwaraka, we know, is associated with Krishna. And the very word Dwaraka itself means a gateway. Today we have the gateway of India in Mumbai, and this represents something of some period. That is fundamentally the British period and the visit of the king here. But Dwarka has also been a gateway. It has been a gateway for trade into India. And this was actually a city that was established by Krishna. And so literary wise, if you look at it, we all take William Shakespeare as a pivot point for English works. We don't doubt his authorship or historicity. And similarly, we have never doubted the Mahabharata. But in between, it went into the realms of myth and so on. And but if you look at Mahabharata per se itself, it calls itself an itihasa. And the Indian knowledge system, the civilization, has been referring to both Mahabharata as well as Ramayana. Only these two epics we call them as itihasa. Now, as far as the story of Krishna goes, we have so many different works from which we can derive information about Krishna. We have the Harivamsha, Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata Purana. But Mahabharata, being an itihasa, therefore talks more about it from a timeline and a factual perspective that can be tied down to both places on earth, on India especially, as well as the time frame of events in India. So it qualifies to be a historical record from which we can cull out information about uh, Sri Krishna and the Mahabharata events. And the aspect of itihasa is because why do we call just Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana? So many Ramayanas are there, so many variations of Mahabharata are there. But then we'd say the one by Vedavyasa is the Itihasa. Why is that? It's because these were authored by the authors who were living during the times of Mahabharata. They saw the events unfold. And how so? Because if you look at it, Vedavyasa and Krishna Dvaipayana, as he's called, is actually the stepbrother of Bhishma. We won't get into the details of the family tree and so on, because then that will take up too much time. But most of us here would be knowing that. So, how he is an integral part of the story of Mahabharata and how the events unfold. So, it is but natural that when he is writing in Hindi, as we say, an Aankho Dekha Hal. So, he's writing a live commentary. And in this, what he has done very beautifully, and it is then from then passed on and comes all the way to Romaharshana and then to Ugrashrava and then from the Naimisharanya forest, though he starts it as Jaya, as a smaller version called Jaya, it then expands and becomes the Mahabharata over time. And the beauty in this is that he has left behind a lot of information about the skies as well as the geography where the events have happened and the sky configurations when the events have happened. And it is with this that we are today able to date these events. So for starters, let us look at the geography that he has spoken about. So we all know some of these prominent places, right, of from Krishna's times. We know places like Dwaraka, Somnath, Indraprastha, Mathura, Vrindavan. These are the names that keep popping up in when we talk about Mahabharata. Now, this Braj Bhumi, or the region of Mathura, Vrindavan, if you look at it, is described so beautifully in Mahabharata and the allied text. So whatever Mahabharata says, certain things it may not say explicitly, but then you find those information detailed out in the other Puranic texts or Harivamsha texts. And there you will find these names of all these different forests. Look at how much of detail they've mentioned each and every forest over here. And they talk about how Mathura and Vrindavan on either side of the Yamuna. And today, if we go to this region, we find the layout exactly like this. And we still find people referring who live here talking about their village or their area, saying that this is part of this Vana. So many of these Vana still are part of the circuit that people visit even today. People still visit this Govardhan Giri, which is exactly at the same place and layout as mentioned in the uh, Puranic texts. So this confirms that whatever is written has been written there so many millennia ago is actually a reflection of the geography of the land. It's almost like your Google map, except that it's not showing you graphically, but it is telling you, verbose in verbose. And it says how there are 7 vana on the western side, 5 vana on the eastern side of the Yamuna, the various fruit groves. And you will find that these places come to life in the various Leela of Krishna. So each different asura, where he did what and all of that, you will find references to those vanas there. And also the hills and various other geographically identifiable places. Similarly, when you come down about Kurukshetra, again, I'm actually pulling up from some of our books and slides. So,
Those who want to read this in detail, it's available in our book, Historical Krishna, which you can access from our website, Bharat Gyan. Okay, you can do that. So this is all only from there for your perusal.
and so you have Kurukshetra as well in mentioned very distinctly. See here, they talk about the war theater. And they say that this was between the flowing rivers Saraswati and Drishadvati. So this is fundamentally the region. Today, the map of India, you will see this. Of course, today you don't see the Saraswati flowing, but this has now been plotted. And because it is an underground river, we have a lot of data to show how we can deduce Saraswati to have been a flowing river and the path of the river. And they talk about the forests and the rivers that were flowing here, the 7 forests and the various rivers again. And all of this again, you can map down to the geography. And one very interesting aspect is, even though you don't see the Saraswati there, you can make out that it was flowing very close to this place, very close to Kurukshetra even today. There is a place called Bhor Saida, which is a camping site today. And there you can actually see the riverbed of Saraswati. And it's a very wide riverbed because people have now been able to find out, and which maps to the description of Saraswati having been a wide river, 8-kilometer wide river. In some places where the Saraswati path has been traced, it can be found to be about 8 kilometers wide. And this Bor Saidan, look at it, this is the archaeological dig at this depth, and you can see the riverine soil here. We had visited this place, and this is Saraswati River's riverine soil at this level, and then subsequent floods, and they match with the time frame that Saraswati River should have flown. Now, so from a geographical point of view, we are able to get the whereabouts and identify, yes, there is this Kurukshetra, the Braj, the Dwaraka. We can relate to even today. Now, what about the time frame? We, as far as time frame is concerned, we say that the Mahabharata and Kali Yuga are very tightly linked, very closely connected with one another. So if you pick Kali Yuga, you can peg Mahabharata as well. So how do you peg Kali Yuga? So what are the various aids that let us go back and identify the time frame for Kali Yuga? Let's try and get to that angle now. So as far as Kali Yuga is concerned, there are a few clinching details for the time frame of Kali Yuga. One is, of course, our Panchanga. All of us today, if we go back, we may be parts of various mutts, and each mutt has got a Panchanga. And if you look at it, there has been a count that was done around 1960s, that there are 7,200 distinct calendars in India, panchangas. So when you say calendars, traditional calendars, the panchangas of India from different mutts, 7,200. Can you believe it? And the the beauty is that all of these actually identify the same date for Kali Yuga, because all these panchangas actually today will talk about today as being so manyth day from the start of Kali Yuga. After so many years from the Kali Yuga, this is the year. So Kali Yuga is the benchmark. And according to all of them, Kali Yuga was on 17th, 18th February 3102 BCE. So that is what the panchangas, all the panchangas say. And then there are a couple of very clinching inscriptions that help you derive the date for this Kali Yuga. And one is from the Aihole Meguti Jain temple, and another one is by Aryabhatta himself. So if you look at the Meguti Jain inscription, so Aihole in Karnataka. Now, this inscription has been dated to be at 634 CE. CE and BCE are the way we talk about the years. We don't say AD, BC anymore. When we say we mean the historical community all over the world today. So they have now moved to a convention which is CE, Common Era, and BCE, Before Common Era. And they actually correspond to what we used to call as AD, Anno Domino, and BC, Before Christ. So this is BCE 3101. And this was at the time of Chalukya king Pulakeshi. And this is that particular temple where this inscription has been found. So what does this inscription, which is this, say? So in all these words, what it says is 30 plus 3,000 plus 700 plus 5. That means 3735 years after the Bharata war, and 50 plus 6 plus 500 equal to 556 years of Saka era in Kali. That is the date of this inscription, is what it says. So it says that this inscription has been written 3735 years after Bharata war and 556 years after the Saka era. Now, this Saka era started around 78 CE. So when you add this, it comes to 634 CE, which is the date of this inscription. And to that, if you then take 3735, now this is, if you subtract from there on, because this is that many years since Bharata war, then you get 3101 BCE as the date for the start of the Kali Yuga and after the Bharata war. So this is how you can just understand the time frame they're talking about. So they are saying from 78, that is Saka era, it is 556. And from Bharata war, it is 3735. And since you know this date, you can arrive at this particular date. Likewise, you also have Aryabhatta, who has also spoken about his age. So he also talks about Kali Yuga in correlation with his own birth. So in his work, so this is the particular verse where he says Bharatat Purvam, and he says out of 4 parts, 3 parts of the Yuga have elapsed, 28th Yuga has come, Thursday has gone, and so on. And he talks about his own birth. He says that 60 times 60 years and 3/4 Yuga had elapsed. 23 years had then passed since my birth. So he's saying when he was 23 years old, that is, he is currently 23 years old, and this is 60 times 60 years and 3/4 of an Yuga. So from this again, you can calculate, and Aryabhatta, his dates are known as 475 CE. And from there, if you work backwards again, you get 3102. So from many perspectives, you find that you're able to converge on a date for the Kali Yuga. And from there on, if you look at it, you can use the various astronomical data which is there in the Mahabharata text. And from that, you can arrive at a timeline for the events of Mahabharata. Now, for paucity of time and for the amount of details it will take, we won't get into looking at each of those sky configurations, but just we'll understand how this is possible at a high level. So, in the Mahabharata text, what they have done is, see, today's clock, if you look at it, your clock would be showing you this, right? 3:15. And we have three hands, the hour hand, minute hand, and second hand. And with this, we are able to say the time, but the limitation is it is just 12 hours. And beyond 12 hours, you have to look outside and figure out, oh, is it daylight or night, and then decide what time it's showing. But look at this clock, the ancient Indian timekeeping clock. You had the sky is a clock with its 27 nakshatra as the unit. So instead of 1 to 12, you had 1 to 27, and that was grouped into 1 to 12 again. And instead of just three hands, you actually had so many hands, 7 hands. The sun and the moon, which we always see, as well as the 5 visible planets. So Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and Venus, which are visible from Earth with our eyes. So these are the 7 pointers in the sky because they traverse the same sky east to west every night and day. And with this, they could then therefore imagine the number of configurations or time units and the span length of time that you can actually talk about with 12 units and just 3 hands. If you're able to talk about so many seconds, so many minutes and hours, imagine with these many hands, what are the kind of permutation combinations you can have. So they kind of become very unique in a very large time span. And you find such kind of mentions saying that the sun was here, the moon was in this particular zodiac. Sometimes if you say just the moon or full moon and so on, or the name of the month, you can automatically derive where the sun would have been and certain stars would have been in that month. And that kind of observations have been found peppered in the Mahabharata for various certain events which we may not think are very important, but in those events you will find these kind of astronomical information. And these include some of the very prominent ones where these kind of events have been mentioned. And in Kurukshetra war, they actually talk about eclipses, 3 eclipses that happen back to back. And so we spoke about Gita Jayanti, right? So this is the day that actually Gita Jayanti, Gita was revealed to us at the start of the war. So if you know the Kurukshetra war date, then we are actually looking at the start of Gita too. So there are verses which say what happened. The Saturn was in particular nakshatram and various, what was the position on the moon, of the moon on the eve of the war. And if you put everything into consideration, not just one date, you have to look at all of them and look at all of them vis-a-vis the Kali Yuga, which is the pegging marker. So you can't be away from your pivot, then you're just flying away loose, like a loose bullet in the sky. You have to be pegged down by the Kali Yuga, and around that, put all the other conditions together and see which is the date that statistically, meaning event A to event B, if in Mahabharata it says it's 10 days or 42 days, then these dates that you arrive at also, they should have the same elapsed time. So like that, you get the start of the war as 22nd November 3067 BCE, which would be the Gita Jayanti date. And so overall, if you look at the unfolding of events, you will find that these events for which you find data, astronomical data, they can all be plotted in a consistent manner Otherwise, you may get dates, but then they won't fit in a consistent manner. This sequence fits in very consistently. It qualifies and meets all the criteria as set by the verse, by descriptions of the events as well in the text. So this sequence can be taken to be the time frame for the Mahabharata war. So on one side now we are seeing that this text Mahabharata, there is a lot of geography in it. It is mapping to all the places, and the events there are mapping to a very consistent timeline and a timeline tradition with which we have been living for so many millennia as well, and which is not too far away in the past. That human memory cannot retain or fathom it. If it is too far off in the past, then one, the astronomical configurations, stars also tend to change, and human memory carrying it so far will be very difficult, because we carry each of these as traditions, because it's not just the war we are celebrating. I mean, we are remembering, we are continuing to celebrate the Gita Jayanti as well, and we are continuing to sit and learn the Gita, try to live by what the Gita is saying, try to venerate. And then we also identify the Kurukshetra as this is the place where there is Gita was revealed. We know, we go to a particular tree and say that this is the tree, this is the region. So the history and geography are very tightly integrated along with our tradition and human memory. So this, in all likelihood, is the timeline for the Mahabharata set of events. So given this now, let us look at some of the geographical places a little more in detail. So let us look at Dwarka. How do we know that this Dwarka is the place where all this have happened? Kurukshetra and all that we are able to identify. But how about the Dwarka? There is some very, very nice, beautiful thing that has been discovered there. We will see that here when we look at, and this is something that is really going to help us understand and look at the connect between Indus Valley and the Mahabharata civilization. So we all know the story of Krishna and Jarasandha, right? And that's the reason actually why he moves to Dwaraka. So after Krishna vanquishing Kamsa, Jarasandha, who was Kamsa's father-in-law, he starts waging a war on Mathura because he's very angry with Krishna for having destroyed Kamsa. And he keeps on attacking Mathura, and so many times he attacks and he is sent away. But then Krishna realizes that it's not good for Mathura if he continues to stay there for long. It's causing a lot of stress on the city. So he, with a few people, he moves away from Mathura, and they go in the direction of Dwarka. We can try to then look into why they go to Dwarka and not some other place as well. But at the moment, we can understand that he goes to Dwaraka because that is the region of Balarama's father-in-law, Revati's father, Raivataka. That is the region, Kushasthali, where he had his kingdom. So his next refuge is for Krishna, Balarama, and their people. They go towards Dwaraka city. So look at it. It's all fitting in as we would behave even today. So like a human strategist, I mean, how we would also behave, he behaves in a similar manner, takes his people, and for this he's called Ranchod. That means one who leaves a battle. Ranchod. He leaves and goes from a battlefield, Ranabhumi. So that's how he earns this name. But actually speaks a lot of strategy in this. So from Mathura, they go to Kushasthali here. And we found that by Dwaraka, again, and why the name Dwaraka. Look at the name Dwaraka. It is, and here is where the strategy, as Krishna as a strategist, also comes out. Dwaraka is at the west coast. And you will find that across millennia, there is evidence for a lot of trade between the coast of India and all the other countries like the Arab world and the Gulf of Persia and all that on the west. And for all those countries, this Dwaraka is a beautiful gateway. So it is very ideal that somebody would want to locate themselves there. And Dwaraka was built like a proper trade city. If you look at Dwaraka's layout, how the text describes Dwaraka's layout, there have been expeditions in Dwaraka and they have identified that they have seen what lies there underground, under the sea, in the seabed, maps to these descriptions in the text. We'll show you some of those. But now just see this beautiful point here. So when they come to Kushasthali, what does Krishna do? He tells that now people from Jarasandha's army, they are trying to infiltrate into Dwaraka. So I would like to keep our people secure. So just the way we have our Aadhaar card, he issues a three-headed seal, three-headed animal seal. So every citizen of Dwaraka was given a three-headed animal mudra. So this is a description which is coming in the text, that the people were given a three-headed seal. Now, when they did excavations around Dwaraka and around Mohenjo-daro also, they found animal-headed seals. Look at this, there's got a three-headed animal. So such seals were discovered in this region. And furthermore, if you look at Dwaraka per se, there have been various rounds of excavations, and they have found foundations for of boulders which show the city wall. And these are arranged in such a manner as though the land was reclaimed from the sea. Just the way today in Netherlands, they are reclaiming land from the sea and prevent the sea from entering. These walls too are built in a similar fashion. And we all know how the allegorical story is there about Krishna requesting Samudra Deva to provide land. So they go there and then Krishna requests him and Samudra Deva yields land. So that's how they describe this particular event. He yields and gives 12 yojana of land, and that is where they build Dwaraka. And Krishna gets Vishwakarma to come and build the city for him. So this is how it is described. But in reality, you're able to map it to how people do even today. And this is confirmed by what lies under the sea. So the general layout of the city in ancient texts, it's a land which has been reclaimed from the city, from the sea. The city was planned and built there on the banks of the river Gomti. Today also you find the Gomti. Today's Dwaraka is also on the mouth of the river Gomti. It was well organized into 6 sectors: residential, commercial, public area. There were wide roads and there was a good harbor for trade to happen. So this is how Dwaraka has been described in the ancient texts. And the archaeological finding is absolutely similar. They found 6 different sectors of regions and they found that they were all interconnected. There were 2 major roads that they found. They found that they were 18 meters wide. And there were 3 groups of buildings and enclosures and so on. So the city was a plan. I mean, it didn't find random strewn structures, but structures which were very well planned and which dovetailed with what is there in the text. See, today also, if you go to temples and all, you find such huge wide roads, 18, so that the chariot Rath can move along that way. So similar such layouts were found, and then there was a lot of harbor evidences, and these could be traced back to the period 2800, 3000 BC, and so on. So they kind of match with the period that the Mahabharata war happened, So one side, look at it, what is happening. You're having a story, a text which is telling a story, and from the data in the story, you're able to say that this story took place around 3000 BCE. The other side, you just have something which we today call modern developments, modern archaeology and excavations, and finding all such marine archaeology and evidences, modern history, and so on. And in this, we are finding that there are evidences for the same places and going back to similar time frames. And you are also finding small clinching evidences like this three-headed seal and so on, which seem to connect both of these. They seem to connect what is there coming from the text vis-a-vis what today we call as modern ways of investigation. So both of these are seeming to come close together. So what happens is, look at this very interesting aspect that is therefore coming up. This is called a paradox. And in today's terms, it's called the Frawley's paradox because it's Dr. David Frawley who first, alerted everybody to this particular aspect. So he's saying, hey, all of you Indians, have you realized that today you're finding history? I mean, when we say history, we are finding that we have all these, evidences of port of Dwaraka and all these different places and trade and archaeological excavations and so on, which are talking about a history and a history pointing to about 5,000 years ago. But there is no literature about this history anywhere. It doesn't talk about who were the people who did all of this. On the other side, you have voluminous literature like the Mahabharata and so many other subsequent, the Puranas and other allied texts, even afterwards about various other kings and so on, who have done so many deeds, and all those deeds are documented and names of places are given, but then you don't connect it because in that it doesn't say time as per today's Gregorian calendar. You don't call it history and you don't connect it with what you're finding on ground. For instance, so he calls this a paradox. He says there is history without literature and there is literature without history. Because see what has happened. If you look at this civilization and you take this part, which is typically identified with the Indus Valley and the Saraswati, Sindhu Saraswati civilization, what happened independently is that so many archaeological sites were discovered, one after the other. Lothal, Dholavira, these are the major ones. And then there were many smaller ones that were continuously being discovered one after the other, thousands and thousands. So totally more than 2,600 archaeological sites excavated, identified in and around this area. And can you see the beauty here? There are these sites which are along this side, and then there are sites along this side. Nothing actually in between. Absolutely empty in between. So do you know why? That's because this was the path of the Saraswati River. And this was the width. The 8 kilometers that I told you about in the beginning, this is the width of that Saraswati River, 8 kilometers. In fact, there are, when we deal with Saraswati rivers, we can show the different harbors on opposite sides, which go to prove that this was a jetty at one point in time. But so this is the thing, you have 2,600 sites that are being discovered separately as part of modern work, which today we attribute as history, development of history. So this is the Saraswati. But at the same time, you have so much of literature written by so many rishi, and many of them keep referring to the Saraswati River, the Sindhu River, and various other rivers. The Ramayana talks about how these rivers are crossed in a particular order. Mahabharata talks about them. In Ramayana, you find Bharata when he returns, how the rivers are, how he comes across the rivers when he is coming from his maternal uncle's house. So all of this information is there. We don't know. I mean, we don't attribute a time frame. We actually push them all away. So far, we have all been pushing them away as mythology or stories and legends. We've never thought of them as works that contain history, as works that talk about our geography, and as works that talk about a particular geography, in fact. So, if you are able to reconcile both of these and Mahabharata that way, and Krishna's footsteps through all these places, the Saraswati, the Dwaraka, the Braj, and all of these, they help us to corroborate and bring this down from that lofty height, where they are floating. It helps us pin it from there back to where it should ideally be, right on ground on that particular region. So, this actually helps us realize that what we are saying as the Indus Valley civilization and the Mahabharata civilization, they're actually contemporaneous. They both belong to the same period. This actually comes down and gets anchored in this region. So we have a history, we have a geography, and we have a literature that connects both of these. And not only do we have a literature, we also have a persona in the form of Krishna and his people who connect all of these for us. And the beauty lies, in the fact that when you have literary sources, you have your geography, you have your archaeology in present times, and all the astronomical information also, they're all pointing and converging. The literature seems to talk about the same geography, and the same geography is revealing the archaeological evidences, and the evidences that have been dug out seem to map to the same time frame that this astronomical information is saying. All of this becomes possible and they converge only if this is the truth. What is at the center, the core, which is the people who lived during those times, especially people like Sri Krishna and the people of the Mahabharata period, since all of those events which have been narrated in Mahabharata are indeed an itihasa and they are true, otherwise these will not converge. They're all converging because this is the actual truth. And that is where the beauty lies. And in our texts, in all our various literature of the civilization, you will find that as time progresses, and you will find an Indus Valley, you will find some other valley, so many civilized, so many archaeological excavations, and so on, but they will only keep going back and reaffirming what our literature has been telling us, which the civilization has been very carefully preserving for all these years and has been bringing it along for all these years. So this tells a lot. I mean, this is one of the reasons why tracing the footsteps of Krishna, the Mahabharata period, actually becomes very valuable to us and tells us a whole lot about the antiquity of the civilization and the veracity of our civilization. And if you look at it across this text, you will find Krishna coming out in, see, we have this concept in Indian thought, right, about the three dimensions of existence. I mean, we talk about the Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika. So you will find Krishna straddling all of these. He was a historical person who lived amongst us as a proper human form, going through all the various actions and emotions that we do, even as normal human beings. You find him having walked through the entire geography and expanse of this land, and by his history and footsteps, we are able to pin that geography as well, understand that geography, celebrate that geography. And at the same time, you also find him having straddled that realm of Adi Daivika and when he talks about the Gita and he talks about him as being the Paramatma and he talks about the consciousness and everything. So that aspect also you're able to relate to when it comes to the literature of this land. So our literature does not just tie history, geography, time frame. It also runs a needle through all these three dimensions of existence as well, because it's true in every level. And that is the beauty that we need to learn to understand and appreciate. We need to realize that there is this beauty in our works, and we need to be able to expand our vision when we try to take in all this kind of information. So I think we have reached, I guess I've given you just 5 minutes for questions and anything.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Hema and Dr. Hari. I wish I had history geography teachers like you when I was in school, because you just brought it alive so wonderfully, and so interestingly. Completely, the way you handled it was really fabulous. Kept us all transfixed. Some of the things that you said were absolutely fabulous. The facts that you threw at us, nobody has any doubt about existence of Krishna or Mahabharata. The way you painted the picture, the geographical locations, the timeline, we know when Kali Yuga started. We know that Krishna was not really Ranchor. It was a strategic move from Mathura to Dwarka. We now know so many things that you have brought alive so beautifully, and the Mahabharata happened at Kurukshetra in a certain way and stuff like that. And the most important thing is the father of the Aadhaar card was not Nandan Nilekani, but it was Krishna back in Dwarka. So, I mean,
Yes.
I think some fabulous facts that you brought up was extremely interesting, transfixed. I can tell you, I didn't move from this chair. Been listening to every word you said, and very interesting for anybody who's even slightly connected with the Gita, with Krishna, Mahabharata, and wants to know more. This was very revealing. Thank you so much. I will now ask Swamini to say a few words.
Shraddha is a very important qualification for anyone who is a spiritual seeker. And that Shraddha can easily get enhanced with the kind of Prayag Raj that you established today, with the convergence of archaeology, history, geography, and so much more. So it was so beautifully woven, all of it. And talks like these are so helpful for us to recognize that we are indeed a part of this sacred geography and we are a part of this sacred history as well. And we are also walking on the same paths as Sri Krishna and Sri Rama and all our sages and devatas did. So, such a life of dedication and commitment. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation and all the very best for all your pursuits.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you chose a beautiful word, Prayag Raj, for this convergence. It's a confluence indeed. Thank you.
There was one question quickly. Thank you for pointing that out, Swamini ji. There is one question which says, is this research based on artifacts or hermeneutics? I don't claim to know what is hermeneutics, but I'm reading out the question. Is this research based on artifacts or hermeneutics? Is the question.
Yeah. You want to speak?
It's actually multidisciplinary. Or, as you said, Swami also pointed out, and Hema explained, archaeology is one of them, artifacts is the other, geology, geography, hydrology, topography,
Etymology.
all this put together is a collect. That's why she said it's a convergence, and Swami used the right term, Prayagraj. It's a Prayaga of a convergence of various perspectives that have been brought out. So it is not one. See, it is not a unidimensional approach as is practiced in some other parts of the world. The Bharata system is always about convergence, bringing things together. So this research that's brought out is also like that, multilateral, multi-perspective, which is what it should be. And all our research in Bharata is generally like that. We don't do this one compartment theory view. We do always, it's intertwined. There's always a vestibule where you can go from one darshana to another darshana and easily come back, and you can go across one kala to another kala and come back. So you have both vertical, horizontal movements. Perambulation is very normal, common, acceptable, and practicable in the Bharata thought. And keeping that as the base in mind, we have been able to do this, and that is how research also should be. It should be multi-focused, multi-pronged. It's very important for research to be that. Only then the essence of the what we want will be got. Because we should not form self-made compartmental blocks. I'll say it's only based on one particular viewpoint or one particular theory. It should the openness helps you bring good thoughts from all sides, as our Vedas say. That is how any good research should be done going forward. The era, the century of closed research is over. It's almost the millennia of openness, open research that we have to look at now.
Yeah, I think that clarifies it amply. Thank you so much.
Whatever Hema showed you from the thing, the book Historical Krishna is available for all to read. It's in the Bharatyan website. So those who want to read the full content can do so. Because what she showed is just 3-4 pages. It's a totally 300 plus page book. So the whole thing, from all these dimensional perspectives, is certainly available for all to read.
The book is available on Bharat Gyan, the Bharat Gyan website. So please feel free. Thank
I'm
you.
definitely ordering one.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Dr. Hema Hari
Namaste.
and Dr. Hari.
Namaste. Thank you. Hari Om.